Hey, welcome to dinner. We're on Ezekiel chapter 8. And it came to be in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th of the new moon, as I sat in my house with the elders of Yehuda, sitting before me, that the hand of Master Jehovah fell upon me there. And I looked and saw a likeness, like the appearance of fire. From his waist and downward, the appearance was like fire, and from his waist and upward, the appearance of brightness, like glowing metal. And he stretched out the form of a hand, and took me by a lock of my hair, and the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heavens, and brought me in visions of Elohim to Yerushalayim, to the door of the north gate of the inner court, where the seed of the image of jealousy was, which causes jealousy. And see, the esteem of Elohim of Yisrael was there, like the vision that I saw in the plain. And he said to me, Son of man, please lift your eyes toward the north. And I lifted my eyes northward, and north of the slaughter place gate I saw this image of jealousy in the entrance. And he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing, the great abominations which the house of Israel are doing here, driving me away from my set-apart place? And you are to see still greater abominations. Then he brought me to the door of the court, and I looked, and saw a hole in the wall, and he said to me, Son of man, please dig into the wall. And when I dug into the wall, I saw a door. And he said to me, Go in and see the evil abominations which they are doing there. And I went in and looked and saw all kinds of creeping creatures, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel, carved all around on the walls. And facing them stood 70 men of the elders of the house of Israel, and in their midst stood Azanyahu, son of Shaphan. Each one had a censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. And he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the dark, each one in the room of his idols? For they said, Jehovah does not see us. Jehovah has forsaken the land. And he said to me, You are to see still greater abominations which they are doing. And he brought me to the door of the north gate of the house of Jehovah. And I saw women sitting there weeping for Tammuz. Then he said to me, Have you seen this, O son of man? You are to see still greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the house of Jehovah. And there at the door of the Hekal of Jehovah, between the porch and the slaughter place, were about 25 men with their backs toward the Hekal of Jehovah, and their faces toward the east, and they were bowing themselves eastward to the sun. And he said to me, Have you seen, O son of man? Is it a small matter to the house of Yehuda to do the abominations which they have done here? For they have filled the land with violence and turned back to provoke me. And see, they are putting the branch to my nose. Therefore I shall indeed deal in wrath. My eye shall not pardon, nor would I spare, and they shall cry in my ears with a loud voice, but I shall not hear them. And he called out in my hearing with a loud voice, saying, Let the punishers of the city draw near, each with his weapon of destruction in his hand. And look, 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate which faces north, each with his battle axe in his hand. And each And one man in their midst was clothed with linen, and had a writer's inkhorn at his side. And they came in and stood beside the bronze slaughter place. And the esteem of the Elohim of Yisrael went up from the cherub, where it had been, to the threshold of the house. And he called to the man clothed with linen, who had the writer's inkhorn at his side. And Jehovah said to him, Pass on into the midst of the city, into the midst of Yerushalayim, and you shall put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and cry over all the abominations that are done within it. And to the others he said in my hearing, Pass on into the city after him and strike. Do not let your eye pardon nor spare. Kill to destruction old, young men, maidens, and children and women, but do not come near anyone upon whom is the mark, and begin at my set-apart place. So they began with the elders who were in front of the house. And he said to them, Defile the house and fill the courts with the slain. Go out. And they went out and struck in the city. And as they were striking, it came to be that I alone was left. And I fell on my face and cried out and said, Ah, Master Jehovah, are you destroying all the remnant of Yisrael and pouring out your wrath on Yerushalayim? And he said to me, The crookedness of the house of Yisrael and Yehudah is exceedingly great. And the land is filled with bloodshed, and the city filled with that which is warped. For they say, Jehovah has forsaken the land, and Jehovah is not seeing. But as for me, my eyes shall not pardon, nor would I spare. I shall recompense their deeds on their own head. And see, the man clothed with linen, who had the inkhorn at his side, reported back and said, I have done as you commanded me. And I looked and saw in the expanse that was above the head of the cherubim, like a sapphire stone, having the appearance of the likeness of a throne. And he spoke to me, and he spoke to the man clothed with linen, and said, Go in among the wheels unto the cherub, and fill your hands with coals of fire from among the cherubim, and scatter over the city. And he went in before my eyes. And the cherubim were standing on the south side of the house when the man went in, and the cloud filled the inner court. And the esteem of Jehovah went up from the cherub over the threshold of the house. And the house was filled with the cloud, and the court was filled with the brightness of the esteem of Jehovah. And the sound of the wings of the cherubim was heard in the outer court, like the voice of El Shaddai when he speaks. And it came to be when he commanded the man clothed in linen, saying, Take fire from among the wheels and from the cherubim, that he went in and stood beside the wheel. And the cherub stretched out his hand from among the cherubim to the fire that was among the cherubim, and took some and put it into the hands of the man clothed with linen, who took it and went out. And the form of a man's hand was seen under the wings of the cherubim. And I looked and saw 4 wheels beside the cherubim, 1 wheel beside each cherub, and the wheel's appearance was like the color of beryl stone. As for the appearance, all 4 looked alike, as if a wheel in the middle of a wheel. When they went on their 4 sides, and they did not turn aside when they went, but went in the direction the head was facing. They did not turn aside when they went. And their entire bodies and their backs and their hands and their wings and the wheels that the 4 had were covered with eyes all around. The wheels were called in my hearing, Wheel. Each one had 4 faces. The first face was the face of a cherub, and the second face the face of a man, and the third face of a lion, and the fourth the face of an eagle. And the cherubim were lifted up. It was the living creature I saw by the river Kabar. And when the cherubim went, the wheels went beside them. And when the cherubim lifted their wings to mount up from the earth, the same wheels also did not turn from beside them. When they stood still, the wheels stood still, and when one was lifted up, the other lifted itself up, for the spirit of the living creature was in them. And the esteem of Jehovah went from the threshold of the house and stood over the cherubim. And the cherubim lifted their wings and rose from the earth before my eyes. When they went out, the wheels were beside them, and it stood at the door of the east gate of the house of Jehovah, and the esteem of the Elohim of Yisrael was above them. It was the living creature I saw under the Elohim of Yisrael by the river Kabar, and I knew they were cherubim. Each one had 4 faces, and each one 4 wings, and the likeness of the hands of a man under their wings. And the likeness of their face was the same as the faces which I had seen by the river Kabar. Their appearances and themselves, each one went straight forward. And the Spirit lifted me up and brought me to the east gate of the house of Jehovah. Each faces east, and see, at the door of the gate were 25 men, among whom I saw Azaniah, son of Azur, and Pelatyahu, son of Benaiyahu, heads of the people. And he said to me, Son of man, these are the men who plot wickedness and give evil counsel in this city, who are saying, It is not near, let us build houses. This city is the cooking pot, and we are the meat. Therefore, prophesy against them, prophesy, O Son of man. And the Spirit of Jehovah fell upon me and said to me, Speak. Thus said Jehovah, Thus you have said, O house of Israel, for I know what comes up in your spirit. You have increased your slain in this city and filled its streets with the slain. Therefore, thus said the Master Jehovah, Your slain whom you have laid in its midst, they are the meat, and this city is the cooking pot. But I shall bring you out of the midst of it. You have feared the sword, and I bring a sword upon you, declares the Master Jehovah. And I shall bring you out of its midst and give you into the hands of strangers, and execute judgments on you. By the sword you fall, at the border of Israel I judge you, and you shall know that I am Jehovah. The city is not your cooking pot, nor are you the meat in its midst. At the border of Israel I judge you. And you shall know that I am Jehovah, for you have not walked in my laws, nor executed my right rulings, but have done according to the rulings of the nations which are all around you. And it came to be while I was prophesying that Pelatyahu, son of Benaiah, died. And I fell on my face and cried out with a loud voice and said, Ah, Master Jehovah, you are making an end to these remnant of Israel. Then the word of Jehovah came to me. Son of man, your brothers, your relatives, your kinsmen, and all the house of Israel, all of it, are those about whom the inhabitants of Jerusalem said, Keep far from Jehovah. This land has been given to us as a possession. Therefore say, Thus said the Master Jehovah, Although I have sent them far off among the nations, and although I have scattered them among the lands, yet I was for them a set-apart place for a little while, in the lands to which they came. Therefore say, Thus said the Master Jehovah, I shall gather you from the peoples, and I shall assemble you from the lands where you have been scattered, and I shall give you the land of Israel. And they shall go there, and shall take away all its disgusting matters, and all its abominations from there. And I shall give them one heart, and put a new spirit within you. And I shall take the stony heart out of their flesh, and give them a heart of flesh, so that they walk in my laws, and guard my right rulings, and shall do them. And they shall be my people, and I shall be their Elohim. But to those whose hearts walk after the heart of the disgusting matters and their abominations, I shall recompense their deeds on their own heads, declares the Master Jehovah. And the cherubim lifted up their wings, and the wheels beside them, and the esteem of the Elohim of Israel was high above them. And the esteem of Jehovah went up from the midst of the city, and stood upon the mountain which is on the east side of the city. And the Spirit lifted me up and brought me in a vision by the Spirit of Elohim into Kasthima, to those in exile. And the vision that I had seen went up from me. And I spoke to those in exile of all the words of Jehovah which he had shown me. And the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, you are dwelling in the midst of a rebellious house. They have eyes to see, but they have not seen. They have ears to hear, but they have not heard, for they are a rebellious house. Therefore, Son of man, prepare your baggage for exile, and go into exile by day before their eyes. And you shall go from your place into exile to another place before their eyes. It could be that they see, though they are a rebellious house. And you shall bring out your baggage for exile before their eyes by day, and at evening go before their eyes like those who go into exile. Dig through the wall before their eyes, and you shall bring them out through it. Take them on your shoulders and bring them out at dark before their eyes. Cover your face so that you do not see the land, for I have made you a sign to the house of Israel. And so I did, as I was commanded. I brought out my baggage for exile by day, and at evening I dug through the wall with my hand. I brought them out at dark, and I took them on my shoulder before their eyes. And in the morning the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, did not the house of Israel, the rebellious house, say to you, What are you doing? Say to them, Thus said the Master Jehovah, This message is to the prince in Yerushalayim and all the house of Israel who are in their midst. Say, I am a sign to you. As I have done, so it is done to them. They are to go into exile, into captivity. And the prince who is in their midst is to bear his baggage on his shoulder at dark and go out. They are to dig through the wall, to bring them out through it. He is to cover his face so that he does not see the land with his eyes. And I shall spread my net over him, and he shall be caught in my snare. And I shall bring him to Babel, the land of the Kasdim, but he shall not see it, and yet die there. And I shall scatter to every wind all who are around him to help him, and all his bands, and I shall draw out the sword after them. And they shall know that I am Jehovah when I scatter them among the nations, and I shall disperse them throughout the lands. But I shall let a few of their men escape from the sword, from scarcity of food and from pestilence, so that they recount all their abominations among the nations wherever they go, and they shall know that I am Jehovah. And the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, eat your bread with trembling, and drink your water with fear and with anxiety. And you shall say to the people of the land, Thus said the Master Jehovah to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the land of Israel. Let them eat their bread with anxiety and drink their water with astonishment, for her land is emptied of all who are in it, because of the violence of all those who dwell in it. And the cities that are inhabited shall be laid waste, and the land shall become a wasteland, and you shall know that I am Jehovah. And the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, what is this proverb that you people have about the land of Israel, which says, The days go by, and every vision shall come to naught? Therefore say to them, Thus said the Master Jehovah, I shall make this proverb to cease, so that they no longer use it as a proverb in Israel. But say to them, The days have drawn near, as well as the matter of every vision. For no longer is there to be any false visions or flattering divinations within the house of Israel. For I am Jehovah, I speak, and the word which I speak is done. It is no longer deferred, for in your days, O rebellious house, when I speak the word, I shall do it, declares the Master Jehovah. And the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, see, the house of Israel is saying, The vision that he has seen is for many days from now, and he is prophesying of times far off. Therefore say to them, Thus said the Master Jehovah, None of my words are deferred any longer. When I speak a word, it is done, declares the Master Jehovah. And the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel, who prophesy and say to those who prophesy out of their own heart, Hear the word of Jehovah. Thus said the Master Jehovah, Woe to the foolish prophets who are following their own spirit, without having had a vision. O Israel, your prophets have been like foxes among ruins. You have not gone up into the breaches, nor do you build a wall for the house of Israel to stand in battle on the day of Jehovah. Their visions are false and their divinations a lie, saying, Thus declares Jehovah, when Jehovah has not sent them, yet they expected the word to be confirmed. Have you not seen a false vision, and have you not spoken a divination of lies? You say, Jehovah declares, when I have not spoken. Therefore, thus said the Master Jehovah, because you have spoken falsehood and seen lies, therefore see, I am against you, declares the Master Jehovah. My hand shall be against the prophets who see falsehood and who divine lies. They shall not be in the council of my people, nor be written in the record of the house of Israel. And they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and you shall know that I am the Master Jehovah. Because they have led my people astray, saying, Peace, when there is no peace. And when one is building a wall, see, they are coating it with whitewash. Say to those who coat it with whitewash, It shall fall. There shall be flooding, rain, and you, O great hailstones, fall, and a stormy wind breaks it down. And see, the wall shall fall. Shall you not be asked, Where is the coating with which you coated it? Therefore thus said the Master Jehovah, I shall break down with a stormy wind in my wrath, and a flooding rain in my displeasure, and great hailstones in wrath to consume. And I shall throw down the wall you have coated with whitewash, and bring it down to the ground, and its foundations shall be uncovered. And it shall fall, and you shall be consumed in the midst of it, and you shall know that I am Jehovah. So I shall complete my wrath on the wall and on those coating it with whitewash, to say to you, the wall is no more, nor those whitewashing it. The prophets of Israel who are prophesying concerning Jerusalem, and who are seeing visions of peace for her when there is no peace, declares the Master Jehovah. And you, son of man, set your face against the daughters of your people, who are prophesying out of their own heart, and prophesying against them. And you shall say, this is what the Master Jehovah said, woe to the woman sewing cushions for all joints of the hand, and to those making veils for the heads of people of every size, to hunt beings. You hunt the beings of my people while you keep alive your own beings. And you have profaned me among my people for handfuls of barley and for pieces of bread, to put to death beings that should not die, and to keep alive beings who should not live, by your lying to my people who listen to lies. Therefore thus said the Master Jehovah, see, I am against your cushions by which you hunt, the beings there like birds, and I shall tear them from your arms, and shall let the beings go, the beings you hunt like birds. And I shall tear off your veils, and shall deliver my people out of your hand, and they shall no longer be as prey in your hand, and you shall know that I am Jehovah. Because with falsehood you have made the heart of the righteous sad, whom I've not made sad, and you have strengthened the hands of the wrong, so that he does not turn from his evil way, to keep him alive. Therefore, you shall no longer see false visions, nor practice divination, and I shall deliver my people out of your hand, and you shall know that I am Jehovah. And some of the elders of Israel came to me and sat before me, and the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, these men have set up their idols in their hearts, and have made the stumbling block of their crookedness before their face. Should I let them inquire of me at all? Therefore speak to them, and you shall say to them, thus said the Master Jehovah, every one of the house of Israel who sets up his idols in his heart, and puts the stumbling block of his crookedness before his face, and shall come to the prophet, I, Jehovah, shall answer him who comes according to his many idols, in order to lay hold of the house of Israel by their heart, for they have become estranged from me by their idols, all of them. Therefore say to the house of Israel, thus said the Master Jehovah, repent and turn back from your idols, and turn back your face from all your abominations. For any one of the house of Israel, or of the strangers who sojourn in Israel, who separates himself from me, and sets up his idols in his heart, and puts the stumbling block of his crookedness before his face, and shall come to a prophet to inquire of him concerning me, I, Jehovah, shall answer him myself, and I shall set my face against that man, and make him a sign and a proverb, and I shall cut him off from the midst of my people, and you shall know that I am Jehovah. And if the prophet is deceived, and shall speak a word, I, Jehovah, have deceived that prophet, and shall stretch out my hand against him, and destroy him from the midst of my people Israel. And they shall bear their crookedness. The crookedness of the prophet is the same as the crookedness of the inquirer, so that the house of Israel no longer strays from me, nor be made unclean any more with all their transgressions. And they shall be my people, and I be their Elohim, declares the Master Jehovah. And the word of Jehovah came again to me, saying, Son of man, when a land sins against me to commit a trespass, and I shall stretch out my hand against it, and cut off its supply of bread, and send scarcity of food on it, and cut off man and beast from it, even though these 3 men, Noah, Daniel, and Iob, were in it, they would deliver only themselves by their righteousness, declares the Master Jehovah. If I cause an evil beast to pass through the land, and it shall bereave it, and it shall be a wasteland, so that no man passes through because of the beast. Even though these 3 men were in it, as I live, declares the Master Jehovah, they would deliver neither sons nor daughters. They alone would be delivered, but the land be a wasteland. Or if I bring a sword on the land, and I shall say, Sword, go through the land, and I shall cut off man and beast from it. Even though these 3 men were in its midst, as I live, declares the Master Jehovah, they would deliver neither sons nor daughters, for they alone would be delivered. Or if I send a pestilence into the land, and I shall pour out my wrath on it in blood, to cut off from it man and beast, even though Noah, Daniel, and Iob were in it, as I live, declares the Master Jehovah, they would deliver neither son nor daughter. They would deliver their own lives by their righteousness. For thus said the Master Jehovah, how much more it shall be when I send my 4 evil judgments on Jerusalem, the sword and scarcity of food, an evil beast and pestilence, to cut off man and beast from it. But see, there shall be left in a remnant who are brought out, both sons and daughters. See, they are coming out to you, and you shall see their ways and their deeds, and shall be comforted concerning the evil which I have brought upon Jerusalem, and that I have brought upon it, all that I have brought upon it. And they shall comfort you when you see their ways and their deeds, and you shall know that it was not for naught that I have done whatever I did in it, declares the Master Jehovah.